Since 1977, Star Wars has been one of the most well-known franchise names in the world. A blend of science fiction, action, drama, and many other genres, there is something here for everyone to love. However, for most people, that entire universe consists of just 6 films, starting from number 4 to 6, then back from 1 to 3, however that works. What many people do not realize is that there is an absolutely massive expanded universe behind all of these movies, including comic books, novels, video games, and much more. So today I want to cover what I believe to be the top 10 pieces of the expanded universe. What I mean by this is things that expand the universe's story, which in this case is comic books, novels, and video games. Remember, I am just one man, and I have not read or played everything, so please keep in mind this is my list. Also, this list is going to be very broad, as there are over 100 novels, hundreds of comic issues, and dozens of video games that I have played and experienced to consider. Agree or disagree when it's all said and done, but for now sit back and enjoy the top 10 pieces of the Star Wars expanded universe.
Number 10.
Shortly after the first Star Wars movie took off, Marvel Comics attained the rights to do some comics related to the characters from the movies. But we're not talking about those because they're absolutely terrible. Instead, we're talking about one of the best comic series of Star Wars, the Knights of the Old Republic comic series. Coming in at number 10 on the list, this series encapsulates the Star Wars universe leading up to the Jedi Civil War. The main character, Zane Carrick, is framed for the murder of a group of Padawans on the planet Taris, and spends most of the series trying to prove his innocence. Him and his cast of misfits all have well-developed characters that go through great character arcs throughout the series. The villains are all interesting and are not just copied and pasted from one another. They are all unique and have their own goals and methods. The only real problem with the series is the wildly inconsistent artwork. With comic books relying on pictures instead of the imagination used when reading books, or the graphics of video games, the fact that the art was sometimes very sloppy and hard to discern hurt the reader's ability to enjoy what was happening. Sometimes the art was in fact excellent, but the constant change between artists forces the Knights of the Old Republic comics to come in at number 10.
Number 9.
The first 3 Star Wars movies to be released all focused on the war between the Rebellion and the Empire. In the books, this war continued for almost another 20 years, but it did eventually come to an end. Only a single book took place after this before a new war started. Aliens from another galaxy invaded, and so began the new Jedi Order, the longest named series of books in the entire Star Wars expanded universe. The quality of the books comes from the absolutely alien feel of the Yuuzhan Vong aliens. They have no apparent connection to the Force, and all of their technology comes from organisms that are shaped to fill a specific need, even their massive battleships. Even their culture is incredibly different, with a pantheon of gods that they worship and mutilations they inflict on themselves to show their devotion. It is incredibly refreshing to have an enemy that is not just another organization, but rather an entire civilization and race devoted to exterminating all other life in the galaxy. It makes all the battles have much more weight to them, as the New Republic is fighting to preserve life as they know it. My personal favorite part of the series is the sub-series called Enemy Lines, where a lot of the military figures in the New Republic take the forefront, and there is a return to the style of the Rebellion in the military tactics. The only reason this series is a bit lower on the list is because I personally have never felt the need to read through the whole series again, as reading it all is such an endeavor that it would take up weeks of reading time. Still, the series has had very far-reaching consequences in the rest of the expanded universe and will not soon be forgotten, especially at number 9 on this list.
Number 8.
Mayday! We need immediate assistance! Accelerate to attack speed! Target locked. Open fire! Protect mission confirmed. Squadron moving out. Incoming Imperial forces.
When people think of Star Wars, they often think of the massive battles taking place in the movies. After the success of the first 3 movies, games started to crop up where people could take command of the forces of the Empire and the Rebellion. Galactic Battlegrounds, Rebellion, and Force Commander were all successful for their time, but they were often limited by what they could graphically produce or process due to the technology available at the time. Then in February of 2006, Star Wars Empire at War released and became the premier Star Wars RTS. It came the closest to realizing the dream of huge space battles and massive ground battles, as well as base building across the planets of the galaxy. The expansion pack, Forces of Corruption, added a whole new faction as well as new units for the Empire and Rebellion, giving even more options in battle. Then add in a dedicated modding community and fun multiplayer, and you have a Star Wars RTS that you can enjoy for years, making Empire at War number 8 on the list.
Number 7.
So much of Star Wars lore is seen from the side of the good guys, like the Jedi and the Rebellion. Almost no early Star Wars media covered what went on for the bad guys when they weren't fighting the good guys. Some video games addressed the issue, and some books covered Vader's life, but that had already been seen in the new movies. Then the Darth Bane trilogy arrived, and we saw how a lowly miner became the harbinger of the new Sith Order that led to the rise of Palpatine. Set 1,000 years before Episode 4, the Darth Bane books tell the story of Dessel, a lowly miner on the planet Apatros, destined for a life of hard work without any chance of leaving the planet. Then a run-in with Republic troops over a game of cards sent him into the Sith military, where he was found to be Force-sensitive. He went on to cause the destruction of the established Sith Order so that he could rebuild around his rule of 2, 1 master and 1 apprentice. The second and third book chronicle his establishment of a hidden Sith with his apprentice Darth Zana, and their eventual battle to decide the future of the Order. The great thing about these books is seeing a war with the Republic from the side of the Sith, and even rooting for them because Bane is a relatable character. He had a very rough life, and when opportunity came his way, he seized it and had the foresight and intelligence to take advantage of it. It also shows off a side of the Force only seen from afar before, and does a great job of showing just why there can be so much attraction towards the dark side that can sway people to it so easily. For these reasons and many more, the Darth Bane trilogy ranks as number 7 on the list.
Number 6.
The Star Wars universe has always been one of conflict. Hell, war is half the title. Through all of the battles, though, there have been great leaders, both good and bad, who lead their troops with incredible skill. Few men, however, are as memorable as the Chiss genius, Grand Admiral Thrawn, or Thrawn for short. His entry on the list focuses on his presence in the books, as he made little more than cameos in a few video games and comics. Beyond Thrawn's own series, the Thrawn trilogy, he has been a primary influence and character in many others, including Outbound Flight, The Hand of Thrawn duology, a number of short stories, and mentions in many other books. Thrawn himself was a great blend of military tactics, philosophy, and forward thinking. He rewarded creative solutions and individual efforts, but quickly stamped out failure in his troops, though with a far smaller body count than men like Vader. Thrawn's troops believed in him and wanted to give him their all, when men like Vader and Palpatine simply led through fear. Thrawn has often been cited as the greatest villain in Star Wars history, and it's hard to deny that claim. Unlike Jedi and Sith, he had no special powers, merely the gift of intellect, making him far more relatable than many other villains, especially those with Force powers. This is why he beats out Darth Bane's books, and in the end, Grand Admiral Thrawn and his books are number 6 on the list.
Number 5.
Every day, people ask themselves, what if I had done this thing differently? Apparently, someone decided to turn this idea into a comics called Infinities, and now the number 5 spot on this list is the Star Wars Infinities, comics that change a single part of each of the original trilogy's movies and change how the entire story plays out. The changes range from very significant, such as Luke missing with his torpedo in Episode 4, to super minor, like Jabba hitting 3PO just hard enough in Episode 6 that he can't translate for Leia. The new storylines are all very well written and have some incredibly epic events happen that are right up there with the actual storylines. For example, in The Empire Strikes Back, Infinity Yoda crashes the Death Star into Coruscant, and in Return of the Jedi, Vader survives and is actually a good guy. For their absolutely crazy storylines on top of excellent artwork, the Star Wars Infinities comics come in at number 5 on the list.
Number 4.
As I said before, war is obviously a huge part of the Star Wars universe. However, it's really easy to just see it on a massive scale with huge armies and fleets clashing. However, the books and video game of the Republic Commandos approach the armies of Star Wars from a different and more personal direction. The video game is the only example of a team-based tactical shooter from the Star Wars universe. You are not an all-powerful Jedi, rather a single trooper who must lead your 4-man team on missions deep behind enemy lines where all you have is each other. Setting up ambushes, blood on your visor, and dodging cannon shots will always be the hallmark of the Republic Commando video game. Similarly, the books of the Commandos focus on the almost family quality that they develop as they fight and die together. The books focus on Omega Squad, a squad remade from the leftovers of decimated squads that were on Geonosis at the start of the war. As the war continues, they begin to see how they are just tools for the Republic, and that they want to escape and live their lives as free men. Both the books and the game have awesome action pieces, as well as excellent character development, leaving these Commandos at number 4 on the list.
Number 3.
I'd like to welcome all our new students to the Jedi Academy. Here we will train you in the ways of the Force. You will learn to defend yourself with a lightsaber. You will also study diplomacy, history, and more. I sense a disturbance in the Force.
You must be the saber-wielding troublemaker.
Ever since Luke Skywalker first switched on his lightsaber in Episode 4, everyone who has seen the movie felt at some point that they wanted to be a Jedi. The Dark Forces series and the Jedi Outcast games focus on Kyle Katarn, a man who became a Jedi after already being a hero of the Rebellion. However, the number 3 spot on this list does not go to him, but rather to Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy. Though much of the gameplay was similar to Jedi Outcast, Jedi Academy was the first game where you got to be your own Jedi. Jaden Korr was your blank slate, and you could do whatever you wanted with him. Use mind tricks to confuse your enemies, snipe them with blaster fire, fry them with lightning, or move in close with your lightsaber. The customizability of both Jason and his lightsaber style meant that you could craft your Jedi into what you wanted and help the new Jedi Order stop the Disciples of Ragnos. The great thing about the game was the feeling of being a Jedi and having their power. Force powers had serious strength behind them, and every lightsaber stroke was a potential dismemberment for you or your enemies. Fights against opposing Force users were incredibly risky, as the slightest misstep could lose you an arm and your life. More recently, the Force Unleashed series tried to recreate this feel, but those games felt repetitive very quickly, and the story was hard to comprehend, especially once the second game released. For letting everyone feel like the Jedi they wanted to be, Jedi Knight Jedi Academy gets the number 3 spot on this list.
Number 2.
Luke, I think we've got a problem. This is a straight hit-and-run mission. It's not going to stop them, but it'll cripple them for a little bit. Good luck. Take your targets and go.
Ever since the Wright brothers made their historic flight in 1903, man has been fascinated with flight. Today we have nimble fighters in the sky and clunky rockets that claw their way into outer space. For the number 2 entry, these two are combined into the books and games of Rogue Squadron and the X-Wings they flew. The Rogue Squadron games are the quintessential flight simulator, with intense dogfights, different mission types, and the ability to fly almost anything from the Star Wars universe, and a couple things from outside of it. Another great opportunity is the chance to recreate some of the most iconic scenes from the movies, such as the famous Death Star trench run and the Battle of Hoth. The books of the X-Wing series are some of the most diverse in Star Wars, split mostly between the Rogue and Wraith squadrons. The same intense action from the games is mixed with espionage and a huge cast of characters, which make all of the books in the series absolute page-turners. I am not including the comics in this countdown for similar reasons to the low status of the Knights of the Old Republic comics. Sometimes the art is just terrible. As a personal note against the comics, I have never really enjoyed action in comic books, as it's so much more limited than the movement of video games or the limitlessness of imagination when reading books. This is why there aren't many comics on this list, but the books and video games of the X-Wing pilots get the number 2 spot on this countdown.
Number 1.
When looking at the Star Wars timeline, almost everything is set within a 100-year span of time, covering the Clone Wars, the Rebellion, and the Yuzhong-Vong War. That is, until the release of BioWare's epic RPG, The Knights of the Old Republic. It showed us the galaxy of Star Wars in a whole new way, set 4,000 years before anything that had come before. The Sith were a force to be reckoned with, and the Jedi Order was massive, with enclaves across the galaxy. Into this came the player, taking control of a Republic soldier whose only goal was to avoid capture and find Bastila, a Jedi who had commanded the ship he was on before it exploded. The gameplay was simple to understand and allowed for a plethora of options in combat, especially after you were made a Jedi yourself. Then near the end you met Darth Malak, and he revealed that you were in fact his former master, Darth Revan, before the Jedi Council erased your mind. Along the way, you were given numerous opportunities to choose between the dark side and the light, and in the end, your decisions altered the galaxy forever, for good or ill. Then Knights of the Old Republic 2 released, and you were now an exiled Jedi struggling to uncover what had really happened after the first game. The gameplay was tweaked to be even better, but the story eventually devolved into a bit of a confused mess. Still, the game was incredibly fun and only left fans wanting more. Now, the Old Republic has released, and with more content than both games put together. Taking on the role of one of 8 classes, you explore a galaxy split between the Sith Empire and the Republic during an uneasy truce, as you go through your class's unique story, with different but still excellent gameplay and more massive worlds to explore than ever before, and now with friends. The games of the Old Republic are absolutely my number 1 choice for the top 10 pieces of Star Wars Expanded Universe. The lore that was built around every one of these games was massive, and any Star Wars fan could spend hundreds of hours playing through the stories and then reading everything they found along the way. For a series crafted from nothing, it has become a unique being unto itself, set apart from all of the Skywalkers and Empires of the movies. The gameplay has always been easy to understand and very fun, especially when Force powers enter the picture. The story is as complex and rewarding as dozens of novels, and the ability to make choices that affect the world around you show what an impact your character can have. And now with the Old Republic, you can even experience all of this with your close friends. For any RPG fan, these games are incredible, and for any Star Wars fan, they are a chance to live the quintessential Star Wars story. For these reasons and many more that could go on for hours, the games of the Old Republic earned my number 1 spot for the best piece of the Star Wars expanded universe. And with that, this top 10 list has come to a close. There is tons of Star Wars media that didn't make the list, but with so much of it out there, it was a huge challenge to whittle it down to just 10 great pieces. I'm sure that everyone who watches this list will disagree with it in some way and can probably make valid points as to why there are problems with it. But please don't just troll, instead leave your own list and explain your choices. But either way, until next time, my name is Timpedia, and I will catch you guys next time in a galaxy far, far away.